All right, welcome everyone. I'm Maggie Ostara, and I'm delighted that you're here. Today is a gathering for our quantum community that is part of the Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center. And I'm really delighted to talk to you today about creativity, what creativity is, how central a part of our being it is, how we can access our creativity and purposely use it for our growth and our development, and how the human design system shows us how creative we are, and then also how we can creatively approach our human design. So that's a piece of what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm just really excited that you're here. I also am going to share with you about the Sovereign Sisterhood, which is a new level inside of the Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center, which will have a much more consistent offerings in it. And I will share with you more about that when we get kind of to the end of the presentation. But I just want you to know that that's coming up and that there will be a few different opportunities for you to come learn about it more. And I'll show you a little bit about what is being prepared for us in there and so on, and how you can be an early adopter and a founding member, and what some of the benefits are going to be for you around that. Okay, so what I want to do is let's see here. I want to get my slides up because I have some slides. Okay, so we are here today to talk about 3 keys to creatively living your human design. And you're really in the right place. If you're interested in human design, it's sometimes you might feel frustrated or confused about your efforts to really live your design. I hear this from people a lot. They're interested, they're learning, like you've been binge watching videos, reading books, looking at, stuff about human design on social media, but you might be feeling like kind of overfull with information, like so much information. I hear this from people a lot when they come to me for readings, is they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much information. And they get a little paralyzed with that. And then you're not really getting the results that you want because you're awash in all this information, but you're not quite sure what to do with it or how to manage it. Or maybe you're drawn to the teachings of human design, yet you feel some resistance in believing and implementing them. This is another thing I hear from people a lot is that they're intrigued by human design. The sort of kind of liberatory aspect of it is appealing, the way that it helps us to get to know our superpowers and a deeper sense of who we are. They're really drawn to all of that. And yet they might have a hard time believing it. They have resistance to believing it. The thing is human design really is a countercultural system. Many of the teachings go against what we've been taught. If you just think about strategy and authority, those two things are deeply spiritual and energetic. They're not analytical at all. And if you approach them analytically, you won't get the results that you want because you're not really in the right dimension, if you will. You're not going at it the right way. So, but a lot of times people feel resistance with really going with their creativity or their intuition. And those are big parts of the human design system. And so, if that's been true for you, I want you to know you're really in the right place as we start to unpack this. This is something I really am excited to work with people on. And over the last year in particular, I have been developing deeper dive programs in which we are really looking at that resistance and unpacking it and unraveling it so that we can be more open to really receive what's there for us. And so I'm happy to share some more of that with you today. And then, really, if you're wanting like a juicy, more enlivening, more embodied, more satisfying way of approaching human design and your design in particular, because, sometimes all that information can feel kind of dry, right? You can just really feel almost like you're up in your head, and it cannot be super satisfying. Okay, so what you're going to get today is we're going to look at some of the underlying reasons that you're having trouble getting the full benefit of what you can from your human design. We're going to talk about some new ways of approaching your human design in general, and what you can do with your own particular human design. And then a deeper and broader understanding of what creativity is and how it can support you to have a richer, more awakened, easier. That is a big one to get. Like when you really start living your design, your life becomes easier, simpler and easier, and definitely more satisfying. And so what I have to share with you, it's going to go about an hour, maybe, towards the top of the next hour. And then I will stay on to chat with those of you who want to do that. Okay. So I just want to, for those of you who are new to me, maybe don't know me well, I just want to tell you a few things that I think are relevant to what we're exploring here today, so that you also get a sense of kind of the trajectory that I've been on and have a sense of what I have to offer you, but also of the transformation that I've really been through. So I started out my adult life going to graduate school and becoming a professor. I was the director of women's studies and gender studies at Columbia College, which was part of Columbia University. And I spent 15 years, going to graduate school, getting a job, publishing my first book, publishing in scholarly journals, and doing that whole thing, going around and giving lectures and everything, until I realized I was just really unhappy. And I know now, looking back at that, I have a lot of individual circuitry. And so I always thought different than other people. I always was kind of pushing a leading edge, which to me was just kind of obvious. It was just the obvious next thing. But to other people, it wasn't so obvious. And so, not knowing human design back then, it was really frustrating for me because I didn't understand why what I wanted to do didn't fit in, why other people didn't understand it. And this eventually drove me out of being a professor because I really couldn't find a place for myself inside of the academy with the way that I saw things and the way that I understood things. And so I left and I really became much more of a seeker myself. I think that term seeker, somebody who is always interested in growth, or interested in evolution, has always been really strong in me. Obviously, that's, excuse me, the core. One of the core qualities of individual circuitry is to always be on that leading edge of consciousness. And so I always had that. And after I left Columbia, one of the first things that I got involved in was clarity breath work, that was about 20 years ago. And I trained as a clarity breath worker. I developed a practice, and then I also trained other breath workers, and did that for a number of years. And that is an incredible, deep, transformational practice that enables us to release limiting beliefs, stuck energy, stagnant emotions from the cells of the body. And that is where I really learned about the power of the breath. And so I'm really grateful to my teachers for having had that experience. And over time, I was eventually exposed to human design, and that was about 7 years ago now, 8 years ago. And I got really interested in it. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what my experience was like a little bit later. But it really captured me. I'm not a super systems person. I do like them to some degree, but there was just such a potency to what human design has to offer that it just really captured me. And it's never let go. And so I trained with Karen Curry Parker, who we were just talking about a minute ago before we turned on the recording. And she is, worked with Ra for many years, and then she also is the creator of quantum human design. So she's really helped to continue to evolve the system, which of course I love, being an evolutionary kind of a person. So I trained with her, and then I've had my own practice for a number of years now, and have taught really, literally thousands of people, and have my YouTube channel and all that. And then about 6 years ago, I've done yoga for a long time, but I was introduced to Kundalini yoga, and my teacher Kia Miller, and that also brought me back into breath work, pranayama, in a really powerful way. And I love to bring the power of the breath and the power of energetic evolutionary practices together with human design, because human design is necessary, but it's insufficient for our highest most easy, really, personal growth, spiritual development path, because human design can show us where we need to condition, but not necessarily how. Like what can we do? Whereas Kundalini yoga really brings that in, and being able to use the breath in a powerful way. I also more recently have brought in intentional creativity, which I'm also certified in, but I didn't have a picture for it. And these are like my paintings are come out of intentional creativity. And in my Embody Your Human Design program, I did a lot with intentional creativity, and will continue to do so, because even though I've been painting for a long time, and I'll share a little bit more about that with you in a minute, I hadn't really brought it into my work so much. And so I have really, really seen how significant, and human design showed me this, how significant owning our creativity is, and having practices that help us to really engage that and understand it. So I wanted to just give you a sense of what's happened to me, how my life has changed as a result of, a lot of what I'm going to share with you today. This image of this woman over here on the left-hand side, right? Very intellectual, just working on her computer in her head, right? That was definitely me for a long time. Definitely as an academic, as a professor. And then this is me. I'm over here on the right, where I've really learned how to um, connect with spirit. And this is one of the key things that the evolutionary practices like clarity breath work and Kundalini yoga definitely help, but also human design, because human design at base is a very spiritual system. It's continually teaching us how we can connect more and more with spirit. I mean, that's what our strategies are ways that we are connected to spirit. And so this has been a big change for me. And I am delighted to be able to help support you to make a change that's relevant for you. It may or may not look like this, but whatever it is for you, because it is really possible. I have learned over the course of my life, it is really possible to change beliefs, behaviors, ways of understanding the world, and ways of understanding yourself that you've had for your entire life. It really is possible to change those things. That you need the tools that are going to help you do that. Okay. So if you're a seeker, and of course you are, otherwise, why would you be here? Struggling with some confusion or doubt or even fear, right? Because these are really common in our world today, with so much information overload we have in general, with so much chaotic energy that's happening, with so much conflict and polarization, right? It would be hard not to feel, some confusion and doubt and fear, given the context of the times that we're living through. So if you're struggling with any of those things, and you're frustrated with trying to access the power of the human design system, right? And really your own power, because this is what human design helps us to understand. And this is what the other tools that I share are about, is how we really understand our own power. Then I can help you with that. Right? What we're going to talk about and what we're going to do in the Sovereign Sisterhood is all about how you get to grow your power within, using human design and using feminine sovereignty, so that when you show up in the world, you are there as a confident, resilient, resourced, visionary person, that you have what you need developed inside of you, so that you can manage and navigate the challenges in the outer world, whether that's relationships or challenges with work that you do, or whether it's your health or your relationship to money, whatever where you live, whatever it is that you build this power within, so that when you step out into the world, you do that as a sovereign being, and that you are able to interact with other people as sovereign beings. And this is really just to say, this is the overall project of my book on feminine sovereignty. I'm not going to really talk about it today, but I do encourage you to get it if this kind of work is of interest to you. And there will be parts of the Sovereign Sisterhood. There's going to be a feminine sovereignty book club, and some other resources and so on that'll be a part of that too, if that's an area that you want to work in and you want to develop. So let's talk about the 3 keys. Okay, the three keys for understanding your human design and for you being able to approach your human design more creatively. So let me just come in here so I can um, really see you here and you can really see me here. So understand that you are inherently and innately a creative being. You cannot not be a creative being. It's not possible for you to be anything other than a creative being. You are an expression of the creative intelligence of the universe. You are spirit incarnated in material reality in this form, right? You are not separate from that creative energy that is animating everything around us and has created everything around us, including you. And this makes you a creative being. And so you are constantly co-creating your experience with that flow of life, with that creative intelligence. And human design really shows us this. Our strategies are the ways that the different types are designed to create with that creative intelligence. Okay, so if you're a generator, manifesting generator, or pure generator, you're designed to create, co-create with the flow of life, right? Through response. That's how you're designed to create. And if you're a projector, you're designed to create with the flow of life by getting engaged with what it is that you're excited about and you're interested in, right? And really radiating out your energy so that you receive invitations. But it requires you to really be building your energy field and for you to be,
Oh.
got to make sure everybody's muted. I'm gonna mute everybody. Okay. Thank you for the no. That was funny. Um, right. And so as a projector, you're working with spirit to become radiant and magnetic to what it is that you're interested in creating and attracting in your life. And as a manifester, you're working with that creative intelligence by tuning in and receiving the creative flow that you get from the motor that's connected to the throat, right? That's how manifestors are designed to work, but they're working, that creative energy comes from somewhere, right? It comes from somewhere. It comes from your divine self or your spirit self or your soul self. It comes from somewhere. Okay. And for reflectors, and we have a reflector here, reflectors are designed to be tuning into the quality of energy as it changes over the course of a moon cycle. That it's highly intuitive. It's highly felt sense, right? And it's also creative in the sense of like, wow, what am I feeling today? What energies am I receiving? How can I tune into that? And how do I co-create with that? So like if you're looking at where the moon is on a particular day, how am I working with that energy? How am I co-creating with that energy today? Right? So all of the different strategies that we have in human design are creative and they're all intuitive also. None of them are analytical. None of them are strategic. So really getting that you are a creative being and that it is your birthright to be a creative being and that you actually are already creating, whether you're doing it purposefully or not, right? That when you understand this, you can take a hold of this superpower that you have, which is your creativity, and you can purposely and consciously create your life with it. Now, in order to do this, it's really important for you to let go of the idea that some people are creative and other people are not. Related to this is some people are artistic or are artists and other people are not. Now, I get that there are people who are extra talented, extra gifted in certain realms of creativity, but that doesn't mean that the rest of us aren't creative. A part of the problem that we have is that in our conditioning, we've been led to believe that those are the creative people, right? The others of us are more logical or more analytical. And Western culture really privileges the analytical and the left brain. And so I know when I was a young person, I was good at math. I was highly intuitive and I was creative, but I was also really good at math. And so I got accolades for being good at math. So I studied math. I ended up getting the senior math award in my high school because that was the track that made sense to me because nobody else had anything to give me regarding that. You know, I came from a highly intellectual family. And so for me, I had my own particular relationship with this, and I want you to tune in for a moment if you feel this way too, which is that sometimes we have trauma around our creativity or our artistry, because as young people, all kids draw pretty much. Right? You give a kid a marker, a crayon, a pencil, a piece of paper, and they're gonna create something, right? And a lot of us created stick pictures, right? Stick figures, stick trees, right? And we did all of that. And then there came a point, right, when we were like maybe 5. I think it's happening earlier and earlier because of the way education's going. But like for me, like around 5 or so, like you start to go, oh no, I can't draw something that looks like something, right? Therefore, I can't draw. I can't do that. Right. And then we stop. Right. We stop. We decide we don't have what it takes. Now, I lived this really strongly in my own life because my brother was one of those extraordinarily talented people. And he was drawing obsessively and in a very talented way as a young person. And so in my family of origin, he was the artist, right? He was good at art and I was good at math. And that's how our family understood who we were. And I lived that out for many years. And I just decided that he was the creative one. It's certainly in anything having to do with two-dimensional art. And I did take on at a certain point in my life, this was after I left Columbia because I was detoxing from my academic career and my left brain dominance because it was really, really strong. So after that, I started calling myself an artist of everyday life because I felt like my food was artistry. The way that I designed my homes was artistry. The way I painted my walls was artistry. The way I did my garden, right? It was artistry. So I considered myself an artist of everyday life. And then I met the woman who became my intentional creativity mentor. And I remember sitting in a workshop with her. This was an early on workshop that I had, and we were just working on watercolor paper. And I just sat there and I was just sobbing. And she came over and she sat down next to me. I still feel emotional actually just telling you this story. Um, and she was like, what's going on? And I said, I I gave over my creativity to my brother. And my family supported that. My family affirmed that that was true, that he was created and I was not. And I got to meet the trauma that I didn't even know I had from suppressing my creativity, from ignoring my creativity. And I just sat there and I sobbed. And then it was great. It just opened it up. I realized what the problem was. I was in a container of support where I was with my teacher. She was there with me. Other people were there with me. Other people were having their own breakdowns and breakthroughs regarding creativity because, as as Shiloh's my teacher, she says, you put a paintbrush in somebody's hand and all kinds of stuff comes up. All kinds of stuff comes up. The next thing you know, you're like sweating, you're like shaking a little bit. You're like, oh no, I can't do this. I mean, it's amazing what happens. But if you just stay with it, that all of that programming that you have will start to dissipate. And if you add some evolutionary practices to it, like breathing, moving, dancing, you can move that energy more quickly. But that really showed me how I, just living, right, had made these decisions where I decided that I would never be able to do something like these paintings ever. It would never have occurred to me that I could do that. And now my house is full of paintings. And so I want you to know that whatever your history is in relation to your creativity, you can totally reclaim it and express it for yourself. You can totally do that. It might be really incremental. It might not look like what you think, artistry is. It might not, seem like it's you might feel, oh gosh, I'm just terrible at this. I don't know how to do this, right? But I want you to know that it really is possible. Okay. So that's a lot of what we're going to be working with in the Sovereign Sisterhood, right? And as we go through the steps today, you're going to see a little bit more about why I say that. Okay. So let's move on to key number 2. So key number 2 is to unhook yourself from left brain dominance. Okay. Unhook yourself from left brain dominance. Now, I was just talking about this experience of myself, about how realizing how hooked into left brain dominance I was. And for you to kind of tune in and notice, like if you have an intuitive hit about something, do you dismiss it? If you're like, I don't know where that came from. Yeah, whatever, right? You dismiss it, right? Maybe you get downloads. Maybe you get images. Maybe you hear voices. I hear voices. I'm very auditory. That's part of my design, is to be very auditory. So I hear things, right? These are some of our psychic abilities, but understand creativity is an intuitive faculty, right? And so you want to be paying attention to, wow, how am I actually receiving input from that creative intelligence? And depending on your design, you are designed to be receiving that information in different ways. And noticing if you are actually believing it. Like I was mentioning earlier on, that sometimes we have resistance to receiving, the teachings and the blessings that human design has to bring us. And if you've been taught your whole life and really incorporated this belief that you have to be able to analyze something, to replicate something, to find out where it came from, to be strategic about it, all these left brain qualities, right? It's like, can you touch it, right? Those things, if you've been really conditioned with that, which virtually all of us have, okay, there's a lot to kind of unravel there as we're opening up our creativity, because creativity a lot of times is not what you think it is, right? It's not just being able to pick up a pen and draw something, or pick up a painting and paint something. It's not that. It's so much broader and richer and more vast. And so all of that becomes veiled, right, when we are really in this left brain dominance, when we're allowing that part of us to be the lens through which we experience everything in life. Now, we need our left brain, right? Of course, we want those faculties. They're really beneficial for us, but we want them to be in right relationship with all of our other faculties. And if you've been with me a while, you may have heard me say this before, seen some of the excuse me, images that I've created with this. But if you were to just take the 3 primary ways of knowing in the human design system: left brain knowing, right brain knowing, and the knowing circuit. Okay, these are the 3 gates that come in here at the top. They're really in the crown, right? So we've got right brain energy, we've got knowing circuit, we've got left brain energy, 3 primary ways of knowing. Then left brain energy, right, which is the logic circuit and is 30% of our way of knowing. Right brain energy, which is the sensing circuit, is another 30%. And the knowing circuit, which is highly intuitive, is 40%. So 70% of the ways that we know what we know, as mapped in the human design system, are intuitive and creative, not analytical. Only 30% is analytical. Take that in, right? This system is basically saying to us, your superpowers are also intuitive and are also creative. So we want to keep our left brain, but we want it to be in right relationship. We don't want it to be dominant. And you've probably heard the phrase that the mind makes a wonderful servant and a terrible master, right? And when we're in left brain dominance, we generally are allowing the mind to be the master. And we tend to want to make decisions with our mind, which in human design, we always say, don't make decisions with your mind. All the ways that we have of making decisions in human design, our authorities are all intuitive, every single one of them. And so we want to be able to really tap into our intuition to make the very best decisions for us. And the way that we do that, it's intuitive and it's creative. It's not analytical and it's not strategic. The mind cannot settle on what's best for us. It has a tendency to bounce around as soon as we make a decision, right? The mind is goes into FOMO, but what about this? And what about that? And if you do this, you'll miss out on that. And, you know, it does that and it makes you crazy, right? It makes you exhausted. It drains you. And so we need to unpack that and really kind of unravel it in our experience, but also recognize that the ways of knowing are not going to be something that other people are going to understand all that much. And so a lot of times what we do is we make decisions intuitively, but then we justify it logically. You notice if you do that, right? So you want to be using all of your faculties and in a that kind of situation, being able to use your left brain energy to do the research you need to do, for example, and you may do some analysis, but you don't use it to make your final decision. And that's one of the big distinctions with human design. So I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah. I want to tell you a little story of a client of mine who has both strong left brain and strong right brain energy. And when she came to me, she was very, very, very left brain. This is pretty typical. A lot of times people come to me and they have a highly developed left brain. And over the course of the time that I've been working with her, she is now really owning her intuition. Because I kept saying to her, I said, you really have a lot of intuition in your chart, you know? And but the fact that she was able to start seeing that in her chart, and we talked more and more about it, what's happened now is she's really getting how much she's able, because she has a lot of the knowing circuit, like when she works with clients, for example, that she just knows what they need to hear. She just knows what's going on with them. And as she started to own this and actually use it, because in the past, her left brain would be like, oh, but where did you get that from? That can't be real. That can't be valid, right? You just made that up, right? You made that up. A lot of times we do that with the hits that we get because we're like, well, we don't know where we got it from, so we figured we just made it up, right? But after all, imagination is a creative faculty, and sometimes making things up really benefits us. So in any event, she started to really own the fact that she has this ability, and it's changed her whole way of living in her life and working with clients, so that she's now much more tapped in to her creative flow and to her intuitive knowing, and that has balanced out her left brain way of understanding things. It's not gone, but now it's more in right relationship. There was another woman who came to me a couple of years ago who was again really left brain dominant, even though she has almost none of the logic circuit defined in her chart. And over the course of the time that she and I were working together, she also, I was like, look at all this intuition in your chart, and I started showing her in there, and she was able to start opening up this possibility. And I remember saying to her when I did her first reading, so I did a reading for her, and she worked with me as a client for 6 months. And I remember I asked her, I said, well, do you like get downloads and intuitive hits? She goes, well, yeah, sure. And she goes, doesn't everyone? And I'm like, no, not everybody does, actually. Not the way I imagine you do. And she started going, oh. And she was like, yeah, I never know what to do with them. So I kind of ignore them. And I was like, well, that is divine inspiration coming your way. That is divine guidance. That is, your guides or that creative intelligence of the universe or your divine self, right? G- Giving you some spiritual information that you can then work with, right? And she was like, wow. And one of the things she reported to me was just how much easier her life became as she stopped trying to figure everything out and stopped trying to analyze everything over and over and over again, right? But instead, she was able to really honor this divine capacity that she has to know and to create and to operate from that place. Okay. And the third key that I want to share with you today is practice, becoming consciously and purposefully creative, becoming consciously and purposefully creative. Practice, practice, practice. So, practice is absolutely vital. If you think about any kind of what things we think of as creative practice, like learning an instrument, for example, this is a good example. If you're going to learn an instrument, you need to practice every day. You need to practice. You need to practice every day. And if you're learning a new language, you need to practice all the time. And it's kind of like if you were going to the gym, right? If you just go to the gym once every couple of months, you're not going to get very far, right? You're going to be frustrated, you're going to be sore, and you're not going to be able to get deeper and deeper in. It's the same thing with creativity. It's the same thing with understanding our human design. And one of the big things that gets in people's way in terms of living their design is that they try to do it intellectually. They go, and you can see this for yourself, and maybe you can pop this in the chat if if you're like, yeah, that's me, because I've heard of lots of people when I bring this out where they're like, yeah, I just am trying to learn all the different data, right? The information about the system. So there you are learning everything about your type and your strategy and your authority and your profile and all of your defined centers and your open centers and your defined gates and your undefined gates and your defined channels and your undefined channels. There are over 125 archetypes in the human design system. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of data. And the truth is, you can't take it in all at once, but I talk to people regularly who say that that's what they've been trying to do. So let me know in the chat, is that something that you've done? Maybe you're not doing it now, but maybe you have done in the past when you first came to it. A lot of times I talk to people, they've been binge watching my videos, which, there's a lot of really great information in my videos. So I mean, I don't blame them for doing that. But this information overload, right? Information overload. And it's not possible to really learn just from information. It's not possible. Information isn't what teaches. What teaches is life experience. Life experience is what teaches us. And so, unfortunately, our school system, by and large, and a lot of what you see out there teaches us that information and memorizing information and being able to spit back information is how we're getting educated, right? That is not education. Doesn't necessarily mean you learned anything. Just because you can memorize something and say it back doesn't mean that you actually learned anything. It means you memorized some information. Learning and what brings you into understanding and then brings you into wisdom is what happens when you apply what you've learned, right? You apply it. So the first thing is to go, oh, my strategy is to respond. I know that when I first came to human design, I rejected the system because it didn't fit with my self concept. I considered myself an initiator. I have an Aries sun. I was proud of the fact that I made things happen in my life. That was part of my self concept. And it's what I practiced all the time, was being an initiator, making something happen. That was my practice. And then when I learned just from a printout that I was designed to respond, I was like, well, that's clearly inaccurate. That's not me. Unfortunately, my life would have gone very differently if I had learned human design then. But then a few years later, things had really, kind of, I'd gotten burned out again. Let me just put it that way. And I was like, maybe there really is something in this human design thing. So I was like, all right, what is this responding thing? What is that? And I made a decision and a commitment to myself that I would practice responding for 2 months, and I would stop practicing initiating, even though I didn't really know what responding was. But I knew just having the information that I'm designed to respond was not sufficient. I was like, well, what does that even mean? That's why I have like 5 videos about responding on YouTube, because I was like, let's unpack this thing, because I think a lot of times people, like, we don't know what that means, right? We don't really know what it means like as a projector. We don't really know what it means to wait to be invited either, because people are really confused about that as well, right? And a lot of times reflectors are like, what does that even mean? Right, Lori? What does that even mean to wait for a moon cycle? I don't know. You got the information, right? But what does that even mean? How do I work with that in my life? How does it influence the way that I experience myself and experience my life, right? You only find that out by application, right? And the process is okay, so I got responding. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply that information. I'm going to explore it. I'm going to see, what does that mean? Oh, I try it this way. Oh, I don't think that was really responding. Okay, not going to do it that way. I tried to, oh, that worked really well. Oh, awesome. Okay, more of that. Right. Let me try some more of that. Right. Oh, hit another wall. Okay. Need to change it, adjust, right? Reflect, adjust, try again. This is how we actually learn, right? This is how we grow ourselves, how we evolve ourselves, right? And it's a continual process of receiving some information, applying it, seeing what happens, adjusting, right? Reflecting, being like, oh, okay. And then applying again, try it again. Let's see, changing some of our understanding and continually being willing to meet our resistance, because we do have resistance, right? I definitely had resistance when I was practicing responding. I was like, this can't be right. That was my first thing. I was like, this can't be right. But over time, as I did it more and more, it became easier for me to do. And I came to kind of see what it was about. So you can think about your own experience with working with your strategy or authority and think about how that's been for you. Um, yeah, I'm going to read here. Lori says that when in response to my question about, how did you initially approach human design? Information. She says, that is certainly how I started. Now I want to lean into intuitions. Yeah, exactly. And then Leon says, the best thing I took away from your video was follow your strategy. Being a generator makes this easier. Absolutely. hmm hmm Absolutely. So being able to apply, right? Being able to apply and then see. And I know that my life would have been much easier if I had had a community and some kind of support for the practice of responding. But I didn't. I wasn't in a human design community yet. I was just at the beginning of my journey. And I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to try to do this on my own, which is part of my MO, right? I'm going to do it on my own. Right. But it was more when I became into a community of practice, when I decided to start training as a specialist, and I had more people that I got to bounce off of what my experience of responding was. And I got to hear from them what their experience of responding was. That really accelerated my learning and my new experiences with my strategy. Very much so. Like I did a sacral skills lab. I think it was March or April. And it was great. We had 3 sessions, and it was very much about applying your authority, right? How do you actually learn your sacral authority? And so we focused on that, and people really got to be able to feel the distinction between when they were in their head trying to figure things out, and when they could feel the messages coming through their body as their sacral. And but it was only through practice that they were able to do that, right? It was only because They were trying it out. And in this case, they had, somebody, me, who is an expert in this area, who's worked with this a lot. And then also a community of practice of other people who are also doing this. And they got to pair up with each other and work with their sacral authority with each other as well. So practice is really what defines who we are. And I want to just note here that there are two kind of primary ways of thinking about practice and two different primary types of practice. So one of them is dedicated practice. So like for example, in my book, I have a whole chapter dedicated to your daily date with the divine, which is a dedicated practice, time and space where you meet yourself. And this is where, you might have a yoga practice, a meditation practice, a journaling practice, all of those things. Like I know I do a movement and yoga and Kundalini yoga practice with meditation and a lot of times with writing. That's my dedicated practice where I set aside time in my day to meet myself, to care for my physical body, to care for my energetic and my emotional bodies, right? And for me to be digesting my experience. Because if we don't have a dedicated time to digest our experience, a lot of times that's how we get so overwhelmed. It's how we get so confused. It's how we start to feel so overfull, is because we're not kind of continually digesting our daily experience. And the other part of your daily practice or dedicated practice can be consciously and purposefully creating your experience, creating your life. Like with the Kundalini yoga practices that I do and that I teach, we learn how to build, clear, harness, and direct our energy so that we become more powerful in creating what it is that we want in our lives instead of unconsciously creating what we don't want or what we've been conditioned or programmed to create. This is how we take command of our creative faculty and we consciously, intentionally, and purposefully create our lives. So a dedicated practice time really helps with that. I know for some people it's easy for them to do. For others of us, it can be really hard to set aside that time. But again, if you do this in a community of people who are working with their practice, right? You get gentle accountability by being in relationship with other people who are working on it as well. And when you create a dedicated practice, a lot of times you do have to use your willpower in the short term, right? Willpower is only meant to be used in the short term. If we remember the phrase of the will center, you work to rest, you work to rest. It's not an ongoing thing that you do. But if you use your willpower in the short term to create a new habit, if it's even just like, I'm going to set aside 10 minutes, 15 minutes for myself in the morning before I engage with everything else in my life, right? Sometimes it takes some real willpower to carve that out, right? But over time, it will actually call you in because the benefits that your whole being will receive, you will start to crave them. Like for me now, if I don't do my practice, I really feel it. I didn't do it the other day. And by the middle of the afternoon, I was like, I do not feel the same. I was like, and I went and I did a practice because I did not feel the same. It's something I had to do in the morning, and it took me out, away, right away, and I really noticed it. So I want to encourage you to create a dedicated practice. And I've had dedicated journaling practices before. I wasn't able to create a dedicated Kundalini yoga practice until I trained as a teacher, and I had to. It was part of my training. It was like, this is required. You have to have a daily practice. So I did. So if you find it difficult, I totally get it, right? But you can start with really small things. Now, in the Sovereign Sisterhood, there's going to be a whole section on Kundalini yoga. I've started to record the videos They're not up yet, but I've started to record the videos that are going to give you the fundamental breathing practices, and then short kriyas that you can do, things you can do in like under 10 minutes. And then there are also other ones as well. But I really want to give you the building blocks of what you need so that you can take a piece that's only, 3, 4 minutes and put that together with a little meditation, and boom, you've got a potent practice that you can start with. And then over time, you can continue to grow it more, right? To add on more to it as you choose. And this is also a place where, let's say, like, for example, I know with all the fear that is running through the collective unconscious right now, my gate 57, which has the fear of the future, has been getting activated, right? I'm like, oh, there's the fear of the future getting activated in me, right? I don't recognize that, well, to some degree, just because I know kind of what's happening in our larger climate change world, right? And what's happening in our ecosystems. I'm tapped into that somewhat. That could create my own fear of the future, but I'm also realizing I'm picking it up from the collective unconscious, right? And it's influencing how I'm experiencing my human design. So I need that practice. And I have done this where I come in and I'm like, okay, I am now clearing. This is where the conscious intention comes in, right? I am clearing the energy of the fear of the future in my gate 57. And I'm going to do a practice that enables me to do that. And then I'm going to affirm for myself that I have the intuitive capacity, because the 57 is also the gate of intuition, right? I have the intuitive ability to not create out of fear, but to create out of my creativity, right? My creative energy. And so by giving myself that conscious intention and purposefully building that, I then create a new foundation for my life, right? And if I didn't, I would probably be walking around in fear because I'm getting stimulated by all of these other energies. So that dedicated practice enables you to raise your set point, raise your frequency that you experience all the time, right? But then also, like I said, process your energy. Then, so that's dedicated practice. But then there's everyday practice, because all throughout the day, we're continually practicing, right? We're practicing our experience. We're practicing. If you're not intentional about this, and if you haven't really been aware, you're just going to practice today what you did yesterday. You're going to practice the same belief system, the same way of seeing the world, the same way of seeing people in your life, the same way of understanding who you are, right? You're going to continue that momentum unless and until you change it. There was a Stanford study out a number of years ago that said that we have in the neighborhood of 60,000 thoughts a day, 60,000 of them. And something like 90% of them are the same thoughts we thought yesterday and the day before and the day before. And most of them are subconscious. That's what's orchestrating our experience, is the programming inside of our subconscious mind, right? And so, in order for our lives to change, we need to reprogram ourselves consciously, purposefully, with greater awareness. And so, having done a dedicated practice, we then move into our days. So, for example, just even like today, this morning, I was getting ready for this session with you, and I started to feel this energy like butterflies in my stomach, right? Having worked with fear recently, I'm like, oh, I think I'm afraid. And then I'm like, no, I'm not afraid. I'm just building energy for this experience that we're going to do today. I could choose to interpret that energy building as fear, or I could choose to interpret it as energy that's building that I then get to tap into as I am here with you. That's an example of my conscious intention of what energy and what emotion am I going to practice as I move into this time with you, right? As I move into this time with you. And so you have examples all day long of how you are practicing something in your life, whether it's a way that you're thinking, an action that you're taking, a way that you respond or react to situations, right? Like when you get triggered, something comes up, you have energy rising, some trauma imprint is coming up. What do you practice in that moment? Right? Do you just full on go into the reaction and, blame the other person or feel afraid and run away? Do you full on go into it? That's a practice, right? Or do you pause and you breathe and you ground yourself and you say, okay, what is the appropriate action in this moment? How can I take care of myself because I have got a trauma imprint that's gotten activated, right? That's a practice. So I'm just naming all these things because I've become so incredibly aware of the significance of practice. And so when we're thinking about our creative ways of approaching our human design, this is something that we practice. It's not just something we do once, and it's not just something we do with two-dimensional art, for example, although we can and we will in the Sovereign Sisterhood, just like we did in the Embody program. We're not going to go in as depth as we did in that, but we will be doing creative practices with that. So looking at what are you practicing, right? What is the lens through which you experience your life? What's the belief system through which you are understanding your world, understanding other people, understanding yourself? What are you practicing in that regard? And how can you break out of conditioning that isn't helpful? Some conditioning is very helpful, but some conditioning is not. How can you break out of that and then practice? And what I've really seen, and I mentioned this earlier, is that we really benefit by having a community of practice, a community of purpose, a community of passion. Like I know for me, building my daily practice was really facilitated by being in a community of practice with my Kundalini yoga teacher, where we were practicing every day. And we did this every day for a month. That was how long my 200-hour training was. I think it was 5 weeks, actually, right? And we were all doing this every day. And I had a community of practice. And I knew that everybody else was practicing also, right? And then we got to come in and talk about our experience of doing our sadhana, which is our daily practice, right? We got to come in and do that. So this is why in the Sovereign Sisterhood, the big piece of it is practice. It's really the piece that you're missing. If you have not been able to embody and express your human design that you want to, and if you have not been able to get the results, the ease, the liberation that the system offers you, it's because you're not practicing, right? And this is typical. I just want you to know if that's you, it's typical because most people don't really know how to practice and they don't have a community that supports them through practice. Um, okay. So the question is, how can you practice creatively living your human design? I know that you probably want me to give you a creative exercise to do, and I will do that inside of that Sovereign Sisterhood. And I probably will post a simple one, and I have posted them around it. We have had them in different places. But the question isn't like what's an exercise you can do. The practice is the question is how can you practice, right? How can you practice? So this is what the Sovereign Sisterhood is designed to do, is designed to give you a community of practice and purpose and passion that enables you to really pick pieces of your design, pick pieces of your belief system, pick pieces of your how you show up and behave in life. Pick those and then work with them creatively and have the support of other people. Now, the logistics of this, actually, before we go to the logistics, you know what I want to do is I want to walk you through uh, some of the elements of what it looks like. Hold on. We're going to go from here because I want to give you a sense of what all the different things that are going to be included. Okay, so this is, you're used to seeing the upcoming events. Obviously, this is where we are right now, right? And what I want to show you is something that you can't see if you're not a host. So This is what we've been building out here over on the left-hand side, if you can see over on the left. This is what we're building out of all the different spaces and all the different practices and information and content, because believe me, there'll be plenty of information and content. But for you to be able to access when you come into the Sovereign Sisterhood. So we'll have a place that starts here that walks you through all the different things that you can do here. We'll have gatherings and replays, and I'll share with you in a minute what the gatherings and gatherings will be like. Then we'll have a central place for chatting where you get to share your experiences and you get to be witnessed by each other. This is how we really support each other. So this is where the kind of monthly events and practices are going to be happening here. But then you're also going to have this series of curated courses that you can dive into. So depending on how versed you are in human design, you can start with the types and the authorities, right? And then if you're more advanced with that, there's going to be other things you can go into, like you can go into intuition by design. There's going to be something about the heart center and all of the different aspects of the heart center, which is I don't think it's as well understood in human design as it could be, but there'll be other things here as well. And we are also next month going to be working with the Transform Your Life with Human Design program, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. Then we're going to have a section on feminine sovereignty and the 8 pillars. There'll be resources. There's going to be a book group if that's something you want to participate in. This is something that'll get built out over time. Energy mastery, we're building out the Kundalini yoga practices. And like I said, there'll be a whole series of things that you can tap into there. There'll also be other spaces for energy practices of other sorts from other teachers and other wisdom traditions so that we can really build out the library of different energy practices that help us on our evolutionary journey. And then here, this is where we have a vault of recordings from previous workshops and trainings and like chartathons and things like that that I have done in the past. And so these will all be here in our vault. These will no longer be available in the regular Becoming Sovereign retreat center after we open the Sovereign Sisterhood. Everything, most of this is going to get moved over here. I mean, I will still be doing one live event in the Becoming Sovereign Quantum Retreat Center that everybody will be invited to. But my main energy is going to be going in here to the Sovereign Sisterhood. And now I want to show you something else here. So this is, and I will post this also, but this is the first page is the basic what we're going to do next month, and this is the basic outline of how the Sovereign Sisterhood is going to go. So August 1st is a special event. So we have five Thursdays in August, so I figured we'd use all of them. This is a special event, and it will be open to people who register for the Sovereign Sisterhood, which will open on August 1st. And it'll also be open to people who are interested to find out more about it and haven't joined yet. But they, and then they'll have the opportunity to join when we come to this. So this is for early adopters. It's an orientation. We'll have a lot more of it built out by then, and we'll be walking you through that and helping you understand more in depth how you can navigate that, what you can do here. And also there will, especially over time as we build out this sisterhood, there'll be more opportunities for participants, for example, to create interest groups in things that they want to talk to other people about or create events. We'll really be building this out so that it is open to members to be participating and creating more for themselves. We're going to have a theme every month, and our theme for August is transform yourself, transform your life with human design. Now, I have a mini program of this that has a 75-page ebook and then also the deep dive journal. This is something that is available for sale, but when you register for the Sovereign Sisterhood, it'll be included in that. So you'll get that whole program. And then I'm also going to do a little video that's going to set us up for the month. This one won't be live because I'll actually be in Costa Rica again. I may shoot a little live if it works out for me. I'm just not sure what my schedule is going to be like, but I'll give it a try. But we will definitely have a theme and something for us to start working on. Then the third week is practice. Okay, practice, setting up an energetic practice and a creative practice. And so you'll have instructions and invitations about how you can creatively work with your design, and energy practices you can do to help clear out any interference that you have, and also to build and direct your energy. We will also at certain times do like chart reading and things like that, because that's where we be practicing some of our skills. But practice is really important, and this will give you um, some um, some tools for you to be using over the course of the month. Then the third session of the month will be breakout sessions where you get to connect and talk with and really, heartstorm with other sovereign sisters here, get to share your experience, be seen and heard and witnessed by others, and to really learn from each other. We really learn from each other. We're inspired by each other. We're uplifted by each other. And it's really important that we start building our community by people connecting with each other and not just connecting with me. And then I will be available for Q&A and coaching in the last week of the month. And so that'll be a like, bring whatever you want to talk about. It'll be an open session. We certainly can focus on the theme of the month or questions about your practice, but you can bring in whatever questions that you want. What are you playing with? What resistance are you running into? What are your ahas? We want to share all those kind of different pieces with us so that we can be learning and growing together. I will be in the retreat center on a regular basis, responding to what it is that you're bringing, helping to just help seed what I like to call our community internet, where we are really connecting with each other and building our, crowdsourcing wisdom with each other. Then these are kind of the core components as it is right now. But like, as I said, we're going to keep building this out. So like the weekly live sessions, which of course are, you can always watch the recordings from these, and you certainly don't have to participate in all of them if you don't want to. The whole point of having these on a regular basis is not to give you something else to do. Okay. So one of the things to realize, this is not about having something else you have to do. It's more about giving you support with what you're already doing. So if we have a theme, it's about, try this on in your daily practice, right? Your daily life, try this theme on and see, oh, how is that working for you in your life? Like, what we're going to do with the transform is I'm going to invite you to pick one part of your design. I think an open center, and to work with that one piece, right? And then you get to carry that through the month and be like, how am I working with that open center? Like, I have an open emotional solar plexus. I get to pay attention to what's going on in my emotional life, and how is my open emotional solar plexus playing a role? So yes, it's a theme, but it's not something I need to go and intellectually understand so much. I could use some information about it, right? But then it's mostly about, how does that apply, right? How do I actually experience that? Which is why we then have a practice that helps guide us in how we're going to be doing that, and then connecting and working with others. So conversations that connect are those breakout sessions where you really get to work more in depth with each other, but then also carry it forward into the community internet, which is kind of like the feed that you see in Facebook, right? Where you can go in and post questions or post ahas, ask for feedback, just ask for witnessing if you want, right? So that's that piece. Again, this is more about you having support for doing what you want in your life, and less about you having to do something new. Doing the energy practices for many of you will be something new. And so that is something that may take some intention and some practice and some willpower for you to bring it in. But like I said, we're going to start with really short ones under 10 minutes. Um, And then it's up to you how much you want to dive into the curated courses or the vault of replays for the community of the events that we've already done, right? It's all up to you. You could just be coming to one or two things over the course of a month when you're busy and you don't have a lot of time. Or you could choose to really engage in whatever is happening and be a part of that. So let me go back to the slide that just shows you what the logistics of this are. I think I'm going to need to turn this into a, yeah. Okay. So, like I said, it opens on August 1st. So you can't actually register for it yet. It will be available on August 1st. And the reason for this is that people who register as an early adopter in the first 2 weeks of July are going to receive 1 month free. So the special is going to be available just for those first 2 weeks of August through the 15th of August. I know it's summertime. It's kind of like herding cats this time of year. So I'm going to give people time to kind of get on board with this and get their free month. During that free month, you'll have access to all of the content and all of the live events for July. You'll have access to the Transform Your Life with Human Design mini program at no cost to you. You'll be able to hold on to this and download all of it. When you make your payment in September, you'll receive my Activate Your Superpowers Understanding Human Design program as a bonus. This is a 12-session in-depth program, which I have taught live a few times and then have also just had as a program that I have offered is for content and then done coaching around. It's a $297 value. I have offered it for as much as $797 before when it had coaching with it. But with this, you're going to get the content, but then bring it into what we're doing here in the Sovereign Sisterhood. So this is a way for you to deepen your understanding of human design if that's something that you want. And you certainly don't have to dig into it if you don't want to, but you'll be able to do this at your own pace, or you'll be able to go in, let's say, "Oh, I really just want to learn more about circuitry." You'll be able to go in and have the lessons on circuitry. So this is a nice bonus to just give you an incentive to come in and be a part of this and to make your payment. Now, as a founding member, which is if you register before August 15th or by August 15th, it's just $37 a month as long as you continue your membership. It's only $37 a month. It will go up after this, but as a founding member, you will have that and you'll lock in that rate. And you'll only pay $37 a month for all of that support, all of the content that is there, the curated courses, the vault, the connection and camaraderie that you'll have from others, and getting to relate and with me and come and ask your questions, and really help to be a part of and to grow this community. So in the spirit of learning how to creatively engage with our human design, this is the piece that I really feel is going to be needed for you. Because I've been teaching human design for, I don't know, 6 years or 6 years or so now. And I see over and over again, the missing piece for people is practice. The missing piece is a community of practice that supports you to stay on track or to get back on track when you fall off, because we all do fall off. The ability to have just kind of that gentle container of support that will hold you when you run into resistance, when you don't know what to do, when you feel confused or overwhelmed, if you do have triggers that going for yourself and all of that, right? That you have that support to keep going. I think a lot of times people walk away from human design because they don't practice. They don't realize what they need is practice, right? What they think is they need more information, right? They don't need more information a lot of the time. They got the information, but they're not actually practicing it, or they don't know how to practice it, or they run into resistance like I did. And I walked away from human design, right? I ran into resistance and I walked away. Whereas if I'd had somebody who was really there for me when I first learned it, my life might have been really different. So I just want to close this part by saying that if this appeals to you, and it's going to be right for you if you enjoy camaraderie, if you really want that container of support, if you're feeling like, wow, the energy in the world on all different dimensions is getting really intense. I would like to have that container of support. Like, I know here in the United States, we're going to go through a major presidential election. Like, what's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months? Who knows, right? Have a container of support to rely on while we're going through whatever is going to happen. It's not that we're going to necessarily come in and be super political in there, and I certainly am not going to support polarizing at all. I want it to be a safe place. And yet we're all influenced by what's going on. And we're in this birth canal as humanity, needing to help to heal our planet and to heal our relationship to the planet and heal our relationship with each other, so that we can create a world that really works for all of us, right? All people, all species, all beings, right? In our beautiful, beautiful planet. So if that appeals to you and you want to learn more about human design and not just learn the information, but actually learn how to get it into the cells of your body so that you embody it, then this could be a really good chance for you. And I would love for you to be there. So if you're curious about this, you can message me inside of the community, or you can shoot me an email at admin@ostaraexperience.com, and I will get back to you. I'm going to do another information session next Tuesday. I'll put that up in the community and I will announce it when I send this out to the larger email list. So I'll do that, and then on August 1st we'll open, and we'll see what kind of magic we want to create together. I so appreciate you being here for today, and I'm just going to say I'm going to stay on. I'm going to turn the recording off in a second and answer any questions that you guys have here. But Lori is just asking, do I know what the regular monthly cost will be? Well, the regular monthly cost, the first one will be $47, but over time, as we build it out and so on, I don't know. I'm not going to guarantee that that's what it's going to be. Um, I think it's really worth significantly more than what I'm initially charging. But I also, part of the reason that I am doing this, actually a big motivator for me, is I know I have people from different parts of the world who watch my YouTube channel a lot. And I also have younger people who watch my YouTube channel a lot. And, in order to work with me, kind of the minimum thing you've needed to do is like to get a reading for $400, right? And so I wanted to create something that somebody could come in for $37 a month, or even $47 a month, and get a lot of support, a lot of content, a lot of camaraderie, in a really affordable way. Because, people who are not in the wealthier countries, even $37 can be a lot for them. And if that's true for any of you who are here watching the replay, you can also let me know, because if people are coming in on different currencies, we can work with that, because I do want this to be available for people at different income levels. So that was a big piece of it. So we'll see. We're at the beginning of this experiment, and we'll see how it goes. All right. So we're going to close out this portion. I want to invite you to put it on your calendar, August 1st. If you want to come in and be a founding member and get that first month free, come in August 1st. And I would, if you could message me or email me ahead of time and say, yay, hey, I'm planning on coming in. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, send me any questions that you have. And I hope that I will be seeing you again very soon. Okay.